Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia. So, let me give some. I know there's no need of introduction, but still, I'll read something about your career so far. So Mr. Umar Abdullah is a prominent Indian politician with a diverse and eventful career. A former Chief Minister of the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir, he became the 11th and the youngest Chief Minister of state after forming a government in coalition with the Congress Party in 2009. He is a grandson of Sheikh Abdullah and the only son of Dr. Farooq Abdullah. All three of him have held the position of the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. 1998 as in subsequent minister. He was the member of 14th Lok Sabha representing Srinagar. He was a Union Minister of State for 8 years in Atal Bihari Vajpayee's NDA government from July 2001 to December 2002. He resigned from NDA government in October 2002 to concentrate on party work. He was on the metal. He took the medal of the National Conference from his father, Dr. Farooq Abdullah, in 2002, and is currently the Vice President of Jammu Kashmir National Conference, JNK's oldest and largest political party. He was the first leader of opposition in the erstwhile state. He was the last leader of opposition in the erstwhile Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly before the assembly was dissolved in 2018 and the state of Jammu and Kashmir ceased to exist in August 2019. He is a BCom graduate in Commerce and Economics. He was employed with ITC Limited and the Oberoi Group till the age of 29 before entering politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Thakur. May I now invite Mr. Omar Abdullah to make his opening remarks, and then we will have Q&A later. Mr. Abdullah.
Thank you very much, sir. It's a pleasure to be back here at the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia. I didn't realize until I was reminded that it's been almost 23 years since I was last here, which is almost half my lifetime. But be that as it may, the circumstances then and the circumstances now, when you look at the state that I belong to, even the very map of Jammu and Kashmir no longer resembles what it did when I was last here. When I was last here, you had a democratically elected government and you could count on elections being held on time in spite of the security concerns that prevailed in Jammu and Kashmir at that point. Today, when we are told almost every day that the situation is far improved, it's as close to normal as it has been in the last 3.5 decades, etc. I believe that unfortunately, Jammu and Kashmir is that place where democracy in India goes to be buried. We have had no assembly election. We've had no elected assembly in Jammu and Kashmir since 2018. The urban local bodies are due to complete their term in office early next month with no sign of a replacement election on the horizon. The life of the panchayats is due to complete also later this year. No elections on the horizon. As far as assembly elections are concerned, not so long ago, we had the chief election commissioner saying that he recognizes there is a vacuum in Jammu and Kashmir that needs to be filled. Unfortunately, as recently as a few days ago, when the elections to the 5 states were announced, and he was asked about elections in Jammu and Kashmir, he said, well, we'll have to see. There are other factors that need to be taken into consideration. No attempt has been made to share with the people of Jammu and Kashmir exactly what those factors are that are denying us our legitimate right to an elected government in Jammu and Kashmir. And in the meantime, the people are suffering. The absence of an elected government has meant an absence of public contact with the administration. There is very little, if any, public contact with the government of the day in Jammu and Kashmir and the people of Jammu and Kashmir at the moment. You have a situation where, with amazing regularities, scams are reported, but even the basic allegations are not looked into. Had those scams been alleged against an opposition government, you can be rest assured that by now investigative agencies would have moved in and if nothing else, raids would have happened. The state of the media in Jammu and Kashmir is a matter of great concern. The fact is that I have never known the media to be as pressurized as it is today in terms of what they can report and what they can't report. The fact is that even cartoonists today in Jammu and Kashmir are afraid to draw cartoons about the government, preferring to draw cartoons about people who haven't been in government for, if I talk about myself now, almost 10 years. But that's the way it is. Journalists are denied permission to travel. Most recently, you had a case where a journalist was nominated for an award, and under pressure from the right wing, the organization that was to give her the award withdrew it less than 24 hours before she was to arrive there to take it. Numbers are fudged to present a picture far rosier than it is. While I'll be the first to accept that, yes, tourism is visible in Jammu and Kashmir, it isn't for the first time in the last 30 years that you've had a situation like this. But the way in which numbers are sort of produced to suggest that for the first time, tourism in Kashmir has crossed 1 crore. The problem with that number is that the number hasn't changed. The methodology to count it has changed. As a practice, previous governments, mine included, and others before me, never counted pilgrims as tourists, for the very simple reason that we found it was very difficult to move pilgrims from the beaten track to actual tourist areas, particularly when you came to Mata Vaishno Devi pilgrims. They would come to Jammu, travel to Katra, go up to the cave, do their darshan and leave. Hardly anybody would move off the track to go and visit any of the areas, even close to Jammu. But this year we find that the government has decided to include Mata Vaishno Devi pilgrims and Amarnath Yatris in the official tourist numbers. Immediately your number bumps up because you have more than 1 crore Yatris to Mata Vaishno Devi. And that's where you get the 1 crore tourist numbers. So you don't have an increased number of tourists into Jammu and Kashmir. All you do is change the way you count them. Similarly, where investment was promised after 5th August 2019, I keep asking the government, please show us something new. Show us a new project that has come up post 5th August 2019. Don't show us the 4-laning of the highway because that was something Dr. Manmohan Singh did. Don't show us the Zojila tunnel because that is also a product of the UPA. Don't show us the railway because that's being built since Madam Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister. Show us something new. The medical colleges were announced when Ghulam Nabi Azad Sahab was Health Minister. The IIT, IIM, All India Institute campuses in Jammu and Srinagar predate 5th August 2019. They were there when the BJP and the PDP were allies. So please tell us, what have you given Jammu and Kashmir post 5th August 2019 to justify what you did? Or for that matter, fresh investment. Show us a sector in Kashmir that has seen investment, whether in tourism, whether in manufacturing, whether in agriculture, whether in horticulture. Is there something that they can show us? But unfortunately, very little. And in the meantime, public anger grows, whether it is over the installation of smart meters, whether it is with levying of house tax, whether it is with regard to operationalizing of toll plazas along the highway. Almost everything provokes the people to come out because there is a simmering sort of resentment about the way things have been after 5th August 2019. And this is more visible in Jammu than in Kashmir, mind you. In Kashmir, actually, the space for even civil dissent is very limited. It is easier to go out and protest in Jammu over civic issues than it is in Kashmir, which is why, as I said right in the beginning, at the moment, unfortunately, Jammu and Kashmir seems to be the place where democracy in India goes to die. And nothing is happening to convince me otherwise. So this, I think, would be as much as I'd like to say to open this, and I'm more than happy to take the questions that you have.
Thanks very much, Mr. Abdullah. Those of you who have a question to ask, kindly raise your hand and wait for a microphone to come to you. Identify yourself and ask a question. Primarily questions, please, no statements or comments. Kindly use the microphone, identify yourself.
I'm Bini Yadav from A Newsmakers. You referred about the elections. Recently, yes, the election commission said what you have just mentioned. I just want to know, have you, your party, or collectively proposed to the government something regarding the elections and the situation? How election commission has specified that they are waiting for certain things to improve, or then only they can declare the dates. But have you suggested something to the government? That is my question.
Why should we suggest anything to the government? Isn't an election our natural right? Did the people of Rajasthan have to suggest to the government to have elections in Rajasthan, or Madhya Pradesh, or Chhattisgarh, or Telangana, or Mizoram? If their political parties came to the government to suggest an election, then I agree. There is some laxity on our part. But if those states didn't have to come to the government of India to suggest an election, then why is Jammu and Kashmir being held to a different standard? If I'm not mistaken, what happened to us on the 5th of August 2019 was sold to the rest of the country as the means to bring Jammu and Kashmir at par with the rest of India. That somehow Jammu and Kashmir and the rest of India, there was an imbalance. And that 5th August 2019 and the removal of Article 370 will bring Jammu and Kashmir at par with the rest of the country. If that be the case, then why are we not at par where elections are concerned? And if the election commission says that there are conditions that need to be appropriate, then is the election commission admitting that the security environment today is worse than it was in 1996? Because you had assembly elections in 1996. If you could have them in 1996 and you can't have them in 2023 because of quote unquote certain situation, then the only sort of conclusion I can draw from that is that somehow the situation in Jammu and Kashmir today is worse than it was in 96. In which case, why are you showing me this G20 and Miss World and all the rest of it? Come out and say it. Just have the courage to say that, yes, things are worse today than they were before 2019. I don't even need you to go back to 96. Just admit for me that they're worse than they were in 2019, and even that is enough for me to stop asking for elections to be held. But if you're going to tell the whole world that the situation is dramatically different and still deny the people of Jammu and Kashmir their right, then something is wrong.
Yeah, I'm Sanjay. I work for Arab News. I'm India correspondent for this Middle East-based English newspaper.
It sort of does not fall within the definition of a prison. I know what it's like to be detained. I spent 8 months with my freedom taken away from me, as did a number of colleagues of mine. So I don't think I can stretch it as far as that. But yes, it is certainly a place where the democratic rights of the people of Jammu and Kashmir have been taken away from them. You mentioned each and every one of them that no longer exists. But at least as of now, we are free to enter and leave Jammu and Kashmir as we see fit. The day that stops, then I would definitely consider using the definition that you just did.
Okay. I just want to add up to the first question about the elections. So I just want to know that what is the actual reason of the delay in the elections? Is BJP still calculating their support in the state, in the J&K? Is BJP still
I can only speculate, but the only conclusion I can draw is that the BJP is afraid of what the results will look like. They don't want to damage their chances in the parliament election, because they've gone and told not just the whole country, but the rest of the world, that the people of Jammu and Kashmir are happy with what happened on the 5th of August 2019. You have bogus surveys that are being talked about, that claim that 80% of the people of Jammu and Kashmir don't want an elected government. Now, I don't know where these 80% are, because I've not met even a small portion of them. The people I meet, regardless of whether they want to vote for my party or not, do want to vote. They want an elected government. Where this 80% actually resides, God alone knows. But what other reason could there be for not having elections in Jammu and Kashmir? Other than the fact that, if you look at the mood on the ground, even in Jammu, in the valley, of course, the BJP doesn't stand much chance anyway. Even their associate parties will find it tough going. But even in Jammu today, the fact of the matter is that urban local body polls are not happening, because it's unlikely Jammu city will vote for the BJP, much less rural Jammu. So I guess until the BJP are satisfied that they can produce a sizable number of elected representatives, Jammu and Kashmir will continue to be denied its right to an elected government.
Yeah, Omar, I would like to ask you. I'm Neelam Mahajan Singh, formerly Doordarshan, but now a columnist. Amir Khusro said, Gar Firdaus bar roez hamiyast, 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 hamiyast. Of course, Kashmir is a beautiful part of the world, so to say, and India, of course. But I want to ask you that is it that when the government of India says that Kashmir is a integral part of India, which it is, then the people of Kashmir should also be as much a part of India, and there should be no animosity between the state and the center.
Well, I take your point, but then that is for the government of India to think about. If for everything we have to fly horse, everything that you take for granted, we have to sort of struggle for, then clearly there is a gap. No lesser person than the Honorable Prime Minister of this country acknowledged this when he called us for that all-party meeting in his residence, year before last? I think it was, 21, if I'm not mistaken. I could be a bit hazy on the dates, where he said, Dilli se duri or dil ki duri, means the distance from Delhi and the distance from our hearts. I want to erase both of them. Unfortunately, neither the Dil Se Duri or Dilli Ki Duri, none of them have actually gone down. In fact, if anything, the gap has only widened since then.
Good evening. I'm Preeti, an independent journalist. I want to know your opinion on the state of terrorism in your state, particularly when the government says that we've done G20, we are opening up theaters and all sorts of entertainment and employment also. Kashmiris are getting and all. All this positive news does come out, but according to you, what is the state of terrorism and terrorist attack? Have they increased?
Well, if you open a newspaper that actually reports, you will find that areas that were hitherto free of militancy or terror attacks are now seeing those sort of attacks again. When I was chief minister, areas that had been cleared of militancy, particularly Jammu side, the mountains of Jammu, Rajouri, Poonch, that belt. Today, you see the sort of attacks that are happening. Look at what happened in Kukarnag a few weeks ago, where a senior army officer, a senior J&K police officer, and a Jawan were killed in an ambush. It wasn't even an encounter, it was a straight ambush. You still have targeted attacks against minorities, even in Srinagar city. So it's not as if the problem has ended. It still persists. It ebbs and flows. So you have some good days, some bad days. But the G20 is not the answer. Ask the people who were in Srinagar at the time of the G20 what it was like for them. They weren't allowed to leave their homes. I mean, if everything is so good, why does the Honorable Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir need the roads to be closed in Srinagar before he moves for 15 minutes before his car moves? Something must be wrong. There's obviously a heightened threat that his security people have picked up that requires that kind of bandobast. In Delhi, you don't close roads for the Prime Minister for 15 minutes. But in Jammu and Kashmir, you close them for the Lieutenant Governor for 15 minutes. I think that tells you the state of affairs as far as terror is concerned on the ground in Jammu and Kashmir.
Poonam Dabas, formerly Doordarshan and Press Trust of India. My question to you is, with the recent results from Ladakh, what is your assessment for the rest of the, I would still call it a state? And secondly, what were the reasons that you were arrested and how were they cleared that you were released?
Okay. What is our assessment of how the rest of Jammu and Kashmir will go? Pretty much the way Kargil went. At this point in time, I mean, it's only an internal assessment, and I have no doubt the BJP will categorically differ with it, even though they're not willing to face the public. But at this point in time, if you have elections in Jammu and Kashmir, I doubt the BJP will come into double digits. And that is in spite of everything they did with gerrymandering the constituencies, delimitation, and all the rest of it. So that's where it stands now. Now, where those seats will go depends on which side of the fence you're sitting. I'd like to believe that a sizable number of those seats will come to the National Conference. The Congress will do well in Jammu. Whether the Aam Aadmi Party, which has sort of dabbled in Jammu politics after forming the government in Punjab, whether they will make any inroads in Jammu, I don't know. The King's parties that have been set up basically to support the BJP in Kashmir are struggling to find a foothold. Ghulam Nabi Azad Saab set up his regional party, but that slowly seems to be disappearing. So I think the traditional political players will do well. The BJP will not. Again, which brings me to that same conclusion, which is exactly why we're not having elections in Jammu and Kashmir. Now, as for the reasons of my detention, I can only suppose that they assumed that I would oppose what they did on the 5th of August 2019, and in that they're correct. I would have opposed it. I continue to oppose it. I think the only mistake they made was in assuming that my opposition would be in some way risky for the people. That has never been my politics. My politics has never been about putting people at risk. We have always said that we will oppose what happened on the 5th of August 2019, but we will do it peacefully, democratically, and constitutionally, which is why we're waging our battle in the Supreme Court, not on the streets. But they locked me away 8 months and some days I was there. I came out because I went to the Supreme Court and filed a petition against my Public Safety Act detention. The Supreme Court basically told the government that if they didn't release me, the Supreme Court would. And therefore, I was able to walk out. But that's pretty much how it happened.
So I wanted to ask you a little about India's reaction to what is happening in Gaza.
Sorry, when you say India, do you mean India the country or India the alliance that we're a part of?
No. India, the country.
Okay.
So my question is that we saw the Prime Minister's tweet where he condemned the terrorist attack by Hamas. Then later we saw the statement by MEA where India reiterated its support for the state of Palestine. So there are two parts to the question. One, do you feel that the reaction has been something to your liking, political liking? Two, would you agree with a lot of what the analysts have written that maybe India's slight change in the reaction stems from the fact that with 2024 elections, the BJP realizes that it doesn't really need the Muslim vote anymore? Would you comment briefly on this?
Well, I'll take your second question first. I don't think the BJP ever counted on the Muslim vote. How much of the Muslim vote ever went to the BJP? Even the tokenism that they indulged in, they don't feel the need to do any longer. This is perhaps the first government in independent India that doesn't have representation of more than 14% of the population. So I think that also sort of links to the first part of your question. India's sort of response, the government of India's response to what happened in Israel and the subsequent sort of demolition of Gaza is linked to the BJP's politics, that it doesn't feel the need to address any of the sentiment that prevails in the Muslim world. Make no mistake, I carry no sort of torch or any sort of agenda for Hamas or what they did. What they did was a terror attack. They slaughtered innocent people. There can be no justification for that. But in the same breath, I'm sorry, flattening Gaza, there can be no justification for that either. By all means, go after Hamas. Nobody can say no to that. But the visuals that we have seen coming out of Gaza are not of dead Hamas fighters. They are visuals of children. So if you have visuals of dead Israeli children, you have visuals of dead Palestinian children. How is it that we as a country are comfortable with one death and not with another? I mean, you have two conflicts raging in the world right now. On one, we have curiously remained somewhat neutral. On the other, where an element of neutrality would have been expected, we've almost gone completely one-sided. I think the statement by MEA and the subsequent telephone call by the Prime Minister between him and the leader of the Palestine, the administration, the government, I think was more an element at backpedaling because of the furious reaction in the Middle East, subdued at the moment, but definitely there on the ground at the way in which India has responded to this.
उमर खुर्रम न्यूज़ 18 कश्मीर से आपने कहा कि सरकार ने कुछ नया नहीं किया, लेकिन सरकार कश्मीरी पंडितों को रिप्रेजेंटेशन देने के लिए बिल लेकर आई, पहाड़ी समाज को रिजर्वेशन देने के लिए बिल लेकर आई। इसी के साथ साथ लेफ्टिनेंट गवर्नर बहुत सारी योजनाएं गिनाते हैं और वो कहते हैं कि अगर मौजूदा व्यवस्था जो भी है, जो प्रशासन है, जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है, उसके हक में लोग वोट करेंगे और जो पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज हैं उनको रिजेक्ट कर देंगे।
देखिए आप, कहाँ है वो बिल? ना बिल पड़ा हुआ ना, सदन के पास लाया हुआ क्या अभी? मैंने तो नहीं देखा। उस पे राष्ट्रपति जी के दस्तखत तो अभी नहीं पड़े। बिल तो हमने भी लाया हुआ था, पहाड़ियों को तो मैंने भी रिजर्वेशन दी हुई थी, इन लोगों ने तो वो भी नहीं किया। जहां तक कश्मीरी पंडितों की बात है, ठीक है ना, अब तो कश्मीरी पंडितों को अपना हक तभी मिलेगा जब आप असेंबली लाओगे ना। एक तरफ से आप बिल ला रहे हो, दूसरी तरफ से आप असेंबली नहीं ला रहे हो, तो ये बिल किस काम का? वो क्या सिर्फ 2 कश्मीरी पंडित उस खाली असेंबली बिल्डिंग में जाके बैठ जाएंगे? बाकी सीटों को भी भरने का काम करना होगा। और जहां तक आपने दोबारा वो 80% बात छेड़ी, मैं आज दावे से कहता हूं ना, कराइए इलेक्शन। मशीन पे नोटा का बटन होता है ना, जो जम्मू कश्मीर का बाशिंदा ये अपने मनोज सिन्हा साहब के गवर्नमेंट को पसंद करे, वो नोटा दबाए, उसी से सारा हमें पता चल जाएगा। क्योंकि जाहिर सी बात है वो मनोज सिन्हा साहब को पसंद करते हैं, बाकियों को नहीं। 80% छोड़िए, 50% छोड़िए, मैं कहता हूं ना, अगर जम्मू कश्मीर की 10% लोगों ने नोटा दबाए, मैं सियासत छोड़ दूंगा। मैं यहां आप सबसे कह रहा हूं, मैं सियासत छोड़ दूंगा। अगर इतनी हिम्मत है मनोज सिन्हा साहब को और वो इतनी अपनी बात को मानते हैं, कराएं इलेक्शन। मैं देखता हूं कितने लोग नोटा दबाते हैं। दूध का दूध, पानी का पानी।
Raghavendra Verma from German television ZDF. Mr. Abdullah, what is the present best case scenario for Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir? What you envisage? Well, is it just going back to the pre-5th of August 2019 situation, or because things have gone away from the demands of Kashmiri leaders right from 1947, various demands. So at present date, what is the best case scenario you think, and for Kashmir, what would be the best? Yeah.
Well, for the time being, I'll settle for a favorable judgment from the Supreme Court and elections in Jammu and Kashmir. That's as much as we can ask for. We get that, and then we can discuss what else is possible. At this point in time, I think it's incremental steps. I don't want to sort of demand the moon when I can't even get my feet off the ground. Let me start getting my feet off the ground, and then we can talk about what else is possible.
Uh, Mr. Umar, this is Bilal, an independent journalist. My question to you is that as a mainstream politician, that you have always believed in the democratic institutions of the country. And when today you say that, the situation of press in J&K is concerning and the democracy in J&K is going to die, how much this situation is concerning for a politician like you, and what does the future of mainstream politics in J&K look like? Thank you.
Well, I think the question about the future of mainstream politics has been put to rest in more than one way since 2019. Mainstream politics is perhaps the only politics now that you will see in Jammu and Kashmir, because you certainly don't see separatist politics there any longer. So even erstwhile separatist leaders are today seriously contemplating either directly sort of joining the political arena, or if not directly, then indirectly throwing their weight behind the process. So you will see far more mainstream politics. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying mainstream is only national conference. Mainstream means everybody who doesn't question 15th August 1947. I think that will continue to move forward in Jammu and Kashmir. What was the second part of your question? Sorry.
The first part was, believing in the democratic institutions and the state.
Well, I mean, let me put it this way: democratic institutions are doing everything possible to shake our faith in them. At a time when we should be seeing more faith in democratic institutions, in Jammu and Kashmir, our faith is getting more and more eroded. And again, my sort of disappointment would primarily be at this point with the Election Commission. And I'm forced to ask, where some months ago you saw a vacuum, why has that vacuum suddenly disappeared? When the Election Commission itself said that there is a vacuum in Jammu and Kashmir and we realize that it needs to be filled, why suddenly are you seeing special circumstances that necessitate the delay to assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir? I think the people deserve an answer. You can't hide behind each other. In the Supreme Court, during the 370 hearings, the government very clearly said that we are ready for elections. The Election Commission has to decide. Yet when the Election Commission is asked, they say, well, we have to discuss with the government. There are special circumstances. Please make up your mind. You're either lying to the Supreme Court or you're lying to the people now, because both can't be true.
Namaskar, I am Rakesh Kumar, Advocate, Supreme Court of India. Sir, you have described the situation very beautifully and answered the long spectrum of the question. Since there was turbulence over a period of time since the independence of the country, it was not a stable state. It will take definitely a time for the people to synchronize with the country and the status of the democracy. So I want to know why the people, the politicians of Kashmir are so anxious about the elections. Let it settle down. It
Why?
will take itself.
I'm sorry, na. Why?
Sir, the rights and duties are two things.
Right.
Everybody knows the right, my dear.
So in what
but
way?
the duties people are failing.
In what way are we failing?
Sir, this is not a. It is
No. Why you ask me the question?
clear.
Now I have a right to ask you. You have leveled an allegation. No, please. You have leveled an allegation. You're a lawyer. You have leveled an allegation against the people of Jammu and Kashmir, saying they're failing in their duties. I am asking you,
sir.
please elaborate on that. How are we failing in our duty?
I have not directly named that the people of Jammu Kashmir are failing in the duty.
You did.
Since you had already stated rights, I say that rights and duties go simultaneously.
Sir, even I did civics in school. I know rights and duties go together.
We are so anxious to oppose the system.
Sir, please go to Jaipur and ask people why they expect an election
Sir,
there.
My humble request is you call us there. We like to go there.
Why should I call you there?
Over such a distance,
who stops you
we
from
not
coming?
be able to know what is the actual situation. Thank you.
Chaliye, thank you. I'm glad to see that you feel that somehow we are failing in our duties and yet are unwilling to elaborate as to how that failure is taking place.
I'm Ravindra, independent journalist and a political analyst. This is a political question. I believe removal of 370 was more to do garner support from Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Rajasthan. I don't know how much is it for Kashmir. So the current dispensation has been able to, build a narrative whereby, they have actually been able to consolidate vote in these areas states that I've mentioned. So don't you think that some kind of narrative must come out from Jammu and Kashmir also to counter this?
Well, I mean, truth be told, we are trying to create a counter narrative built around the denial of democratic rights to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. But unfortunately, hardly anyone is interested in listening to us. It doesn't help that the constituencies you're talking about are the ones that are being polarized to the maximum extent. And our misfortune, or however way you want to look at it, is that Jammu and Kashmir is a Muslim majority state. Therefore, when we talk about our rights, it seems to come across as we are asking, as the gentleman sitting behind you seems to feel, that we want to be appeased, that somehow we don't have a right to be treated at par with everybody else, and should be second class citizens within our own country. But like it or not, there'll be very few takers for this narrative in the states that you mentioned, and I understand that. I don't know how much of the vote the BJP is going to garner in the next election. That will be about 370 and Jammu and Kashmir, because if my memory serves me correctly, soon after what they did on 5th August 2019, you had some state elections, and the BJP lost almost all of them. So 370, even in its immediate aftermath, wasn't an election winner for the BJP. So I'm not sure how many people, even in the states you mentioned, are going to go marching into the polling booths come elections next year and vote for the BJP simply because of what they did on 370. I think there are going to be a lot more if the issues, including the big temple that is being built in Ayodhya, I think that will trump 370 many times over.
सर नमस्कार, गोपाल राजपूत, मेरी दिल्ली मेरी शान से। सर आप इंश्योर करेंगे कि अगर आपकी गवर्नमेंट आती है तो जिस तरह पूरे देश में लोग मंदिरों में जाते हैं, वैष्णो देवी की यात्रा और अमरनाथ की यात्रा, वो संगीनों के साय के बगैर कभी कर पाएंगे?
सॉरी, आप मैं को क्या कर पाएंगे?
जैसे कि अमरनाथ यात्रा करते हैं हिंदुस्तान के अंदर लोग,
हाँ,
जम्मू कश्मीर वैष्णो देवी जाते हैं,
हाँ,
तो बहुत ही ज्यादा सुरक्षा की वहां व्यवस्था होती है। नॉर्मल तरीके से कभी जा पाएंगे?
जरूर जा पाएंगे, क्यों नहीं जा
अगर
पाएंगे?
आपकी गवर्नमेंट आती है तो
बिल्कुल, हम तो वही उम्मीद कर
सर,
रहे हैं।
आज तक हुआ नहीं
ना
है,
सिर्फ
सर, सर।
आज तक हुआ नहीं, वो हमारी गलती नहीं है ना। पड़ोस में एक मुल्क ऐसा बैठा हुआ है जिसने बीच बीच में वहां मुश्किल पैदा करने की कोशिश की, लेकिन हमारे तरफ से तो हमेशा ये कोशिश रही है कि आजादाना तरीके से लोग आए और वहां पे दर्शन करें, और हालात इसी तरह बेहतर होते जाएं तो उम्मीद है कि दोबारा वो दिन आएंगे जहां पे इस तरह के बंदोबस्त की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी।
Hi, sir. I'm Ayush Garg. I represent Yarn Express. It's a newspaper based in Delhi and Geneva. So my question is regarding the Israel-Gaza war. Traditionally, India has had a foreign policy in which all the parties, irrespective of the domestic differences, have a uniform stance when it comes to external relations. With the India alliance, we have seen a divergence regarding the stance in the Israel-Gaza war. So I want to know whether any direct outreach has been taken by the India alliance to any of the Arab leaders or leaders in the Middle East regarding this?
I wouldn't be able to comment on that for the simple reason that there has been no conversation within the India alliance on what is happening in Palestine or Israel. None whatsoever. I think everybody has been so caught up in the factionalism that has now sort of emerged within the alliance on seat sharing in Madhya Pradesh, etc., that they don't want to call a meeting to discuss external issues. So whether individual parties have had conversations with governments in the Gulf or the Middle East, I wouldn't know. But I know for a fact that as an alliance, we haven't had any conversation amongst ourselves.
Take the microphone. Please take the microphone. Take the microphone and ask.
Good
Identify
to,
yourself.
good to see you, sir. Saurabh Sharma from ETV Network. Just one question. What is the future of Hurriyat?
What is the future of?
Hurriyat.
And one more thing, election
Well,
commission.
I don't know what the future of the Hurriyat is.
Mirwais
But
साहब को तो
but
free
what
किया
I
गया है.
what I will say is that, make no mistake, the sentiment that the Hurriyat represented still exists in pockets.
Exactly.
So let's not believe that separatism or separatist sentiment in Jammu and Kashmir has completely died. Yes, it was represented by an organization called the Hurriyat, which now sort of is in dormancy. But the sentiment is still there. Now, whether another force will emerge to represent it, whether that sentiment will remain under wraps for the time being, I don't know. That only time will tell. But I think we need to understand that, contrary to what we were told, that Article 370 is actually the fountainhead of separatist sentiment in Jammu and Kashmir, and that if you remove Article 370, separatist sentiment will disappear. That is not true. The pockets of separatist sort of ideology, they remain in the valley.
And so, one more question. What do you have to say on the election commission?
What do I have to
Election commission
say?
has been saying that
I've said everything I had to say about the election commission. All I can say is that as a state, because I still struggle to call it a union territory, we are disappointed that we are being denied a right that is otherwise freely available to everybody else in the union.
Sanjay.
Sir, one question, Sanjay here from Arab News again. The question is about like what happened in Jammu and Kashmir on August 5th. Do you think it's now possible for Pakistan to engage India? How difficult for Pakistan and India to engage itself? And I would also like to ask you the related question. How important you think now that India and Pakistan should talk to each other to normalize the relations and to also sort out the matter in Kashmir?
Well, I think we're very far from normalizing relations. And if you want evidence of that, you only have to look at the recent cricket match that was played in Ahmedabad. It shows how far the two countries are from each other, where we can't even play a match in a slightly more sporting sort of environment. We even troll our players when they're seen to be slightly friendlier with the other side, which we wouldn't do perhaps with any other country's cricket team. But we do it when our team is friendly with members of the Pakistani cricket team. So I think that tells you how far we have moved apart from each other. What are the prospects for normalizing this relationship? Well, in the short term, none at all. Let's not forget, if nothing else, both countries go to elections next year. In the run up to that election, there is absolutely no chance whatsoever that you'll see any forward movement. A, you have an interim government on that side, and B, you have a government on this side that will be going into full-fledged election mode with these 5 states and then parliament. What happens after that, I don't know. I guess a lot will depend on who comes back to power in Delhi post that general election, and how much space they have for normalizing relations with countries in the neighborhood. No lesser person than the Prime Minister I served under said that you can change your friends, you can't change your neighbors. Like it or not, that country is our neighbor. It's going to remain our neighbor. It's not going to disappear. You will have to engage. But the point I have continuously been making is that the onus for creating circumstances for that engagement don't rest just with India. You know, we often hold India to account that dialogue with Pakistan is not taking place. But I think we also expect Pakistan to create circumstances that allow India to get into a dialogue. I mean, let's not forget, and credit where credit is due, it was this Prime Minister who called Nawaz Sharif for his swearing in when nobody expected it. So that was a huge step forward, which wasn't reciprocated. Then our Prime Minister went one step even further. He actually visited Pakistan and dropped in sort of unannounced at a family wedding. And we all know how that was responded to. So, as much as I'd like to see a move to normalizing that relationship, I'd also like to see our neighboring country do more to take on board our concerns And when steps are taken by our government, at least show some reciprocity. Reciprocal sort of terror attacks don't do anything for those of us who believe in the continuity of dialogue.
Mr. Abdullah, this is a related question. The government of India says that as far as talking to Pakistan is concerned, the only thing that needs to be discussed is when 1/3 of Kashmir, which is under Pakistan's control, will become a part of India. What is your take on that?
What do you want me to say? Do it. Have we ever said no? If you feel you can bring that part of Jammu and Kashmir back, and there is a way in which you can do it without killing people, why would any of us say no? But I haven't yet seen a viable, practical means of reintegrating Jammu and Kashmir that doesn't involve bloodshed. If there is one, I'll be more than happy for them to share it with us. Before you look at integrating that part of Jammu and Kashmir with India, can you at least give this part of Jammu and Kashmir the rights that it deserves? We'll worry about that part later. This part is still struggling for rights. Give us our rights, then we'll talk about the other side.
One more question on this. You had an alliance with Congress in Ladakh local elections. Was it part of India alliance, and are you going to take this forward, this alliance, to the other elections?
Well, after the results, it became part of the India alliance. But as far as I remember, it was never discussed in the India alliance. In fact, if anything, it was never discussed between myself or my father or any of the Congress leaders. It was purely a local arrangement arrived at by the people, by my party colleagues in Kargil, with their counterparts in the Congress in Kargil. After we won, it became an India victory. I wonder if the results had been slightly different and we had lost, whether the India alliance would have claimed that defeat as well. But be that as it may, are we going to take this alliance forward? Look, we are a very small player. Let's first try and get something going in Madhya Pradesh, UP, places like that. I mean, we seem to be falling apart in UP today. Everyone is announcing that they're going to fight all 80 seats. We are a party that's confined to Jammu and Kashmir. I'm tempted to say we're also going to fight all 80 seats. Let's see what happens. Dekhi jayegi, since everybody's in it, we might as well. But no, seriously, we started well. We sort of put the government on the back foot, particularly with the choice of name and things like that. But we seem to have hit a few serious sort of stumbling blocks. The absence of clarity as to whether the India alliance was just for parliament or was also to include these 5 states, I think that's caught us rather short. There was no clarity within the alliance as to whether these 5 states would also fall under the India umbrella. And I think that's why we're suffering now, because of the inability of the Congress and the Samajwadi Party to find a working sort of understanding there. I hope that they do manage to figure something out, because otherwise it's going to be difficult to sustain this alliance. And I believe we really do need to sustain it.
The lady at the back,
Yeah,
be
Dr.
specific,
Rekha.
ask a question, no statement.
अभी
please.
आपने ये कहा कि भारत और पाकिस्तान दोनों एक तरह से वो मैच नहीं, वो तो आप वर्तमान सरकार के किसी एक्शन को अप्रिशिएट करना या उसको पॉजिटिव कहना पसंद करेंगे, क्योंकि कोई धारा ठीक नहीं थी तो हट गई, तो क्या दिक्कत है उसमें?
नहीं, क्या मैं समझा नहीं आप?
मेरे कहने का मतलब ये है कि अपन दूसरे देश की बात कर रहे हैं कि दोनों देश जो है एक दूसरे के ऐसे खुशी व्यक्त नहीं कर सकते या ऐसे नहीं। वर्तमान सरकार का कोई एक्शन जो कश्मीर से संबंधित है, क्या आप उसको पॉजिटिव, ठीक या अच्छा कहना पसंद करेंगे?
जी नहीं।
तो भारत पाकिस्तान के अपन एक होने की या बढ़िया उस एप्रिसिएशन की बात करते हैं, जब हम ही एक दूसरे को नहीं कर सकते। कोई चीज तो ऐसी हो सकती है जो ठीक ठाक हो, देश के हित में हो।
मैं माफी चाहता हूं, लेकिन जम्मू कश्मीर को लेके मुझे कोई ऐसी बात नजर नहीं आई जिसकी मैं तारीफ करूं। अगर आपके जहन में कोई ऐसी बात है जो आपको लगता है उन्होंने किया हो जिसकी मैं तारीफ करूं, मुझे बता दीजिए। अगर मुझे सही लगा मैं तारीफ करूंगा। जहां तक मौजूदा हुकूमत ने कोई ऐसी चीज की हो जिसकी तारीफ होनी चाहिए, मैंने अभी आपसे कहा कि पाकिस्तान के साथ संबंध बेहतर बनाने में हमारे प्रधानमंत्री ने ऐसे कदम उठाए जो इससे पहले प्रधानमंत्रियों ने शायद उठाए नहीं, और शायद वो उठाने पे सोच भी नहीं सकते थे। अगर ये तारीफ नहीं थी तो क्या था, लेकिन ये हकीकत है।
मेरे कहने का मतलब ये था कि बहुत लोगों को लगता है और जिन्होंने डीप स्टडी की वो जानते हैं कि उन्हें धारा 370 है या कश्मीरी पंडितों के प्रति जो वहां का रवैया है वो अगर ठीक नहीं है और कोई धारा हट गई तो उसमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं, ऐसा लोग महसूस करते हैं, तो उसमें कोई बुराई नहीं है अगर हटना, उसमें कोई उसके ना हटने से कोई ऐसा।
वो 370 आपको दिया नहीं गया था, तो जब हटा आपको बुरा लगा नहीं। 370 जम्मू कश्मीर के लोगों को दिया गया था, उसका हटना जम्मू कश्मीर के लोगों को ही बुरा लगेगा ना। लेकिन जब दिया गया उस पर कोई वक्त की सीमा नहीं लगाई गई थी। अगर आपने उस वक्त कहा था, अगर आपने उस वक्त हमें कहा होता कि ये सिर्फ 50 साल के लिए है और 50 साल के बाद ये हट जाएगा, हम खामोश हो जाते। लेकिन हमें यह कहा गया था कि जब तक जम्मू कश्मीर इस मुल्क का हिस्सा है ये बना रहेगा। इसीलिए उस वक्त कहा गया था कि इसको बदलने का सिर्फ एक ही तरीका है, थ्रू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली। लेकिन अब ये लड़ाई सुप्रीम कोर्ट में है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट को अपना फैसला सुना दें दीजिए, जो भी उनका फैसला होगा हमारे सिर आंखों पे।
Despite the political differences between India and Pakistan, the people-to-people association has been very warm and positive. Do you now find, you gave the example of the cricket match, do you now find the perception totally changed?
I find far less people-to-people contact. I think my own practical experience has been that there's far less civil society engagement with each other. I think there's less space for it. I'll be honest with you.
Agreed.
In previous governments, when I got invited to Islamabad, I went. Honestly, today, if my phone rings and I see a +92 number on it, which I know is coming from Pakistan, I'll cut the call and block the number. Because there is no space for that kind of talk. I remember delegations from across the border coming to Srinagar and having discussions, civil society groups talking. You don't see that happening any longer at the moment. At the very least, we gave visas to fans to come and attend matches, which we're not doing now. So I think the contact is a lot less. Maybe the warmth on the ground is still there, but we're not able to see each other the way we used to.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Ask a question, no statement. Please.
Yeah, I'm Amogra Mitra from The Print. Can we expect INDI alliance at the state level, including NC, PDP and Congress, or NC will go all alone when assembly elections come?
At what level? The India Alliance?
India alliance at assembly election level.
Why would you ask me to start a seat-sharing dialogue for an election that isn't on the horizon? I mean, my entire sort of complaint has been that we don't have an election. When we have an election, we'll sit down and we'll talk. Let's see what sort of space there is. Again, I make the point that nowhere in the India Alliance has any state level election been tackled, which is why we're in the trouble that we're in between the Congress and the Samajwadi Party. So I can't predict what will happen. The only thing I do know is that there are no elections on the horizon. So unfortunately, this is a hypothetical question. We'll talk about talks. Why not?
Right. Umar sir, one more question.
Is there any contact with Delhi?
दिल्ली से कुछ रिपोर्ट्स आई हैं कि बीजेपी हैज बीन कांटेक्टिंग यू, उस पे आप बताएंगे तो बेहतर रहेगा।
मेरे बहुत से मित्र हैं बीजेपी में ना। मैं देख रहा हूं, मैं सियासत करता हूं, नफरत नहीं करता हूं।
वो तो अच्छी बात है।
तो मेरे दोस्त हैं, कभी कभार हेलो हाय हो जाता है, कहीं मार्केट में मिले तो मैं हाथ मिला लेता हूं उनसे, लेकिन मेरी खुफिया बातचीत किसी से नहीं हो रही है। मैं आपसे कहूं,
सवाल ये आप जाएंगे बीजेपी के साथ?
मैं आपसे कह रहा हूं ना, बीजेपी के किसी भी ऑफिस बेरर के साथ मेरी कोई बातचीत नहीं हो रही है, ना हुई है, ना बातचीत की कोई संभावना है। हम बीजेपी को जम्मू कश्मीर में हराने पे लगे हुए हैं, उनके साथ खुफिया तौर कोई बातचीत करने में नहीं लगे हैं।
और सर मिरवाई साहब को अभी छोड़ा गया,
फिर बंद किया,
फिर उनसे खुद बातचीत हुई थी पिछले हफ्ते, तो उनका क्या वो पॉलिटिकल अरीना में एंटर करेंगे दोबारा?
आपने उनसे बात की, आपने उनसे बात की, सवाल आप मुझसे पूछ रहे हो। मेरी 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 जनाब, मीरवाइज साहब से मेरी कोई बात हुई नहीं है। मीरवाइज साहब से मुझे याद नहीं है पिछली मर्तबा कब कोई बातचीत हुई होगी। ये सही है कि उनको छोड़ा गया, 2 बार वो जामा मस्जिद आए और जुमा का खुतबा दिया, तीसरी बार आने पे उनको रोक लगाई गई। और आज आए या नहीं आए मुझे पता नहीं। आज अगर उनको इजाजत दी गई होगी उसके बारे में मुझे जानकारी है नहीं, क्योंकि मैं दिल्ली में हूँ। आगे जाके वो क्या करेंगे, जब आप अगली बार उनसे बात करेंगे, पूछेगा, फिर मुझे बताइए, क्योंकि हम में से कई सारे ऐसे लोग हैं श्रीनगर में जो ये जानना चाहेंगे कि आगे जाके मीरवाइज साहब क्या करना पसंद करेंगे, क्योंकि एक बड़े मतलब इन्फ्लुएंशियल लीडर हैं, मजहबी लीडर हैं, जम्मू कश्मीर के सबसे इन्फ्लुएंशियल मजहबी लीडर हैं। जाहिर सी बात है जब वो रोल करेंगे तो उस रोल का असर पड़ेगा। उनका क्या रोल होगा, जब आपको पता चलेगा हमें भी बता दीजिए।
Mr. Abdullah, do you think the situation is conducive to conduct elections in Jammu and Kashmir?
Yes, quite simply yes. The truth is that militancy is lower than it was in 96. You would have to be, you would have to be completely biased and a barefaced liar to suggest that the security environment in Jammu and Kashmir is worse today than it was in 96. So if you can have assembly elections in 1996, you can have them in 2002, you can have them in 2008, you can have them in the immediate aftermath of the floods, when at that time I pleaded for elections to be delayed. I said, look, I have no interest in remaining as chief minister. By all means, impose governor's rule, let NN Vohra Saab take over the administration, but let's at least come out from under this water, and then you can have elections in the spring. But the government said, no, absolutely not. The same government said, absolutely not. Elections must be held on time. There is no reason why they should be delayed. So you had them, and that's that. So if you could have them then, I see no reason why you can't have them now.
Well, I think that was a very comprehensive kind of interaction. There are no more questions. So may I? You have a question? Yeah, sorry.
There's one more there. That's it. That's the last one then.
So not related to particularly Jammu and Kashmir, but Canada has expelled about 42 Indian diplomats. Where does the India alliance stand on it, and where do you particularly stand on it?
Canada has expelled? I thought we had asked the Canadians to leave.
India has expelled, yeah.
We asked the 41 Canadian diplomats to leave.
Yeah.
Again, I very much doubt whether this is a subject that the India alliance is going to discuss. Given what is happening politically and the sort of inward focus on sort of seat sharing and stuff like that, individual parties will have views, but this is not something that has come up for discussion in the alliance, and I'd be pretty surprised if it does come up for discussion.
The lady at the back, last question, please.
Despite all that we have seen since 2019, as you said, that there's a yearning in the citizens of Jammu and Kashmir to come back to the electoral process. So as politicians, what is it? Because there has been a break. As politicians, what is the new hope that you're offering to these people who have shown a lot of maturity and progress in the way they have responded to what has happened? What is the hope you're offering to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and can the healing process begin now in the state?
I'd like to believe it can. I'd like to believe in some ways we've already contributed towards that process by continuously talking about doing whatever we have to and fighting whatever battles we have to constitutionally and legally. As to what we will offer them an honest representative government, which is something they haven't had since 2018. We will offer them a government that won't lead them up the garden path, that will promise only as much as it can deliver and no more, and do so honestly and as transparently as possible.
May I invite Simran to propose a vote of thanks and then present Mr. Abdullah a memento from the FCC.
From all of us here at the FCC, let me thank you, Mr. Abdullah, for being here in the evening today. We've all enjoyed this really engaging session, and I hope you'll come back soon for more sessions. Also, this event has been streamed live on the FCC Facebook page and the Twitter page. And on the archives section of FCC Facebook, this will be saved. So in future, if any of you want to go back and listen to the interaction again, it will be there. And a small request to anyone who's putting out a news report, please do mention that this interaction took place today at the FCC. Once again, thank you, Mr. Abdullah, for being here with us today. Thank you so much.